I grew up as the oldest son in a third-generation construction company. From the time I could walk, I was fascinated by blueprints and building sites. My grandfather started this business from nothing, and I knew early on that I wanted to be part of that legacy. I worked hard, got my degree in construction management, and when Dad invited me to join the family business 5 years ago, I was thrilled. I gave everything to this company, bringing in our biggest contract ever at $15 million. Then came the meeting where Dad announced one of us would be promoted. If you are watching this, let me know where you are from in the comments section, and please hit that like and subscribe button as I tell you how my family business started falling apart. Growing up as Wyatt Johnson meant living and breathing construction. Our family dinner conversations revolved around ongoing projects, zoning permits, and client relationships. I remember sitting on my grandfather's knee at age 5 while he taught me how to read a simple blueprint. There was something magical about seeing lines on paper transform into actual buildings. My grandfather, Thomas Johnson, started Johnson Construction with nothing but a pickup truck and a toolbox back in 1965. He built the company from the ground up, one house at a time. My earliest memories include visiting construction sites with him wearing a too-big hard hat that constantly slipped over my eyes. He would point to buildings around town and say, "Your grandpa built that," with a pride that I wanted to earn for myself someday. Unlike many kids who rebel against family traditions, I embraced ours. In high school, I spent summers working as a laborer on our crews. I learned every aspect of the business from the ground up: how to pour foundations, frame walls, and most importantly, how to manage people. When it came time for college, there was never any question about my major. I graduated with honors in construction management, determined to bring new ideas and energy to the family business. But my father, James Johnson, insisted I get experience elsewhere first. "You need to learn how other companies do things," he said. "Then you can bring the best practices back to us." So I spent 2 years working for a competitor, learning modern techniques and management styles. Every day I took notes on processes we could implement at Johnson Construction to make it even better. When Dad finally called me with the job offer to come back and work for the family business, I was ecstatic. At 26, I was ready to help take our company to the next level. The day I walked into the office as an official employee rather than just the boss's son was one of the proudest moments of my life. My younger brother, Trevor, was a different story altogether. 4 years younger than me, he never showed much interest in the family business. Where I was eager to learn and work, Trevor was more interested in parties and playing golf. My mother always defended him, saying, "He just needs to find his passion." But years passed, and that passion never seemed to involve hard work or responsibility. When Trevor finally joined the company after dropping out of college, it was clear he was only there because he had no other prospects. Dad gave him a management position right away, something I had to earn through years of labor and education. I tried not to resent this, telling myself that blood ties sometimes come with complications. For 5 years, I worked tirelessly at Johnson Construction. I modernized our bidding process, implemented project management software, and built relationships with suppliers that saved us thousands. Our employees respected me because I knew their jobs inside and out. I could step in and help on any project when needed, and I never asked anyone to do something I wouldn't do myself. My crowning achievement came when I secured the $15 million Riverside Plaza development project, the largest in our company's history. I spent months cultivating the relationship with the developer, learning their needs, and crafting the perfect proposal. When they signed the contract, Dad actually hugged me in front of the entire office. "You've just secured our future for the next 3 years," he said. With that success under my belt and a growing portfolio of satisfied clients, I felt confident about my place in the company. So when Dad called a family meeting to discuss the future leadership of Johnson Construction, I entered our conference room with optimism. At 31, with my track record of success, I believed I was ready to step into a senior leadership role. Mom was already seated at the table, smiling nervously. Dad stood at the head, shuffling some papers. We waited 15 minutes for Trevor to arrive, which wasn't unusual. He finally strolled in, checking his phone, barely acknowledging anyone. I remember thinking how different we were. Me in a pressed shirt ready for a day of work, him looking like he'd just rolled out of bed even though it was 2 p.m. "I've been thinking a lot about the future of this company," Dad began. We're growing faster than ever, and I'm not getting any younger. It's time to start planning for the next generation of leadership. I sat up straighter, ready to accept whatever new responsibilities Dad was preparing to offer me. That's why I've decided to promote Trevor to executive director effective immediately, Dad announced. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually checked to see if Trevor looked as shocked as I felt, but he just had that same smug smile he always wore when things went his way without any effort on his part. Trevor will oversee all operations with final approval on major decisions and projects. Dad continued as if he hadn't just dropped a bombshell. Wyatt, you'll continue in your current role, but we'll report to Trevor now. I tried to maintain my composure, but my voice betrayed me when I finally spoke. Dad, I don't understand. I've been working toward leadership for years. The Riverside project alone. That's exactly it, son, Dad interrupted. You're already excelling in your role. Trevor needs this opportunity to grow and develop his potential. He's always lived in your shadow, and it's time he had a chance to prove himself. My mother nodded in agreement. Trevor just needs some direction. This responsibility will be good for him. I looked at my brother, who was leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed, looking pleased with himself. He hadn't secured a single contract or managed one project successfully in the 3 years he'd been with the company. After the meeting, I cornered Dad in his office. The confrontation was painful for both of us. I laid out all the reasons why this decision made no business sense. My experience, my education, my proven track record versus Trevor's abysmal performance reviews and lack of interest. Dad sighed deeply. Look, Wyatt, between us, I know you're more qualified, but your brother needs this. He's struggled to find his place, and I believe with the right opportunity, he can rise to the occasion. So you're gambling with the company's future to boost Trevor's self-esteem. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. I'll be supervising him closely, Dad assured me. Think of it as a training period. If it doesn't work out, we'll reassess. I'm just asking you to be patient and supportive. Can you do that for the family? I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying years of memories, skipping parties to study construction management, working weekends to learn every aspect of the business, the pride I felt bringing in the Riverside contract. All of it seemingly counted for nothing compared to Trevor's need for an ego boost. The first signs of trouble appeared within weeks of Trevor's promotion. He immediately started making changes, not the kind that improve efficiency or profitability, but the kind that established his dominance. His first major decision was to fire Harold, our project manager of 20 years, claiming he was too set in his ways. Harold wasn't just an employee. He was the backbone of our operation. He knew every client, every supplier, and could troubleshoot any issue on any job site. When Trevor replaced him with his college roommate who had zero construction experience, I knew we were headed for disaster. Dad, you need to step in, I urged after hearing about Harold's termination. Mark has no qualifications to be a project manager. Give him a chance, Wyatt, Dad replied, though I could see the concern in his eyes. Trevor has the right to build his own team. That was just the beginning. Trevor implemented a new streamlined bidding process that eliminated crucial quality checks. He cut corners on materials to increase profit margins, ignoring my warnings about potential code violations. When I raised concerns in meetings, Trevor would dismiss them with, "We're modernizing, Wyatt. Your way is outdated." Within 3 months, the cracks started to show. Projects that should have taken 6 weeks were stretching to 10. Callbacks for repairs doubled, then tripled. Clients began complaining about delays and quality issues. Our once sterling reputation in the community was eroding rapidly. The Riverside Plaza project, our golden goose, was particularly vulnerable. The developers had strict timelines and quality standards, and we were meeting neither. I started receiving concerned calls from their project manager, Sophia. "Wyatt, we have serious concerns about the schedule slippage," she told me during one particularly difficult call. "And the last material delivery didn't meet specifications. We need these issues addressed immediately, or we'll have to reconsider our contract." I tried to handle these problems quietly, staying late to correct Trevor's mistakes and smooth things over with clients. But I couldn't be everywhere at once. For every fire I put out, Trevor started 2 more. Meanwhile, my brother was rarely in the office. He'd come in around 10, take a 2-hour lunch at the golf club, and leave by 3, claiming he had business meetings. The meetings must have been at the local bar because he'd often post photos on social media of himself and his friends drinking during work hours. The financial impact was inevitable. Our overhead increased with Trevor's unnecessary hires and office renovations, while project delays meant we weren't collecting final payments on time. Cash flow tightened. For the first time in 15 years, we couldn't offer employee bonuses at Christmas. I tried again to reason with my father. This time I came armed with data, profit and loss statements, project timelines showing delays, customer complaint records. I laid it all out on his desk one evening after Trevor had left early for yet another meeting. Dad, look at these numbers. We're heading for serious trouble. The Riverside developers are threatening to pull their contract, which would be catastrophic for us. Trevor is running this company into the ground. Dad reviewed the documents, and I could see the worry lines deepening on his forehead. But still, he defended his decision. Every new leader has growing pains, Wyatt. Trevor just needs more time to find his footing. We don't have more time, I insisted. At this rate, we'll be facing layoffs by summer. I'll speak to him, Dad promised. We'll get things back on track. But the conversation my father had with Trevor seemed to have little effect. If anything, Trevor became more defensive and resistant to any input. He began excluding me from client meetings and making decisions without consulting anyone. The tension spilled over into our family life. Sunday dinners, once a pleasant tradition, became battlegrounds of passive-aggressive comments and thinly veiled accusations. Mom continued to defend Trevor, saying I was being too hard on him and needed to be more supportive. Loyal employees began jumping ship. First Harold's team left, then our best superintendent, followed by several skilled foremen. Each departure weakened our ability to deliver quality work on time. I found myself at a crossroads. The company I loved, that my grandfather had built from nothing, was crumbling before my eyes. But it wasn't just a company. It was my heritage, my future, my identity. Walking away would mean abandoning not just a job, but a part of who I was. Yet staying meant watching the slow-motion car crash continue, powerless to stop it. Each day brought new disasters, new evidence that Trevor was completely out of his depth. And each day my resentment toward my father and brother grew deeper. The breaking point came 6 months after Trevor's promotion. I was working late as usual, trying to sort out a mess with our suppliers who were threatening to put us on credit hold due to late payments. My phone rang. It was Sophia from the Riverside development. "Wyatt, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "There's been a major issue with the structural supports on the east wing. Your team installed the wrong gauge steel, and it doesn't meet code requirements. This is a serious safety concern." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I personally reviewed those specifications." "Well, someone changed the order. We just had an inspector out here, and he's red-tagged the entire section. Work has to stop immediately until it's fixed, at your expense." After hanging up, I dug through the project files and discovered that Trevor had changed the materials order to a cheaper alternative without consulting the engineering team. His handwritten note on the change order read simply, "Cost savings opportunity." That opportunity was going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix, plus penalties for the delays, not to mention the damage to our reputation. I called an emergency family meeting for the next morning. For once, even Trevor showed up on time, though he looked annoyed at being summoned. "The Riverside developers are threatening to terminate our contract," I announced without preamble. Trevor changed the structural steel specifications without engineering approval, and now the building has failed inspection. Dad paled. The Riverside project represented over half our annual revenue. Losing it would be devastating. "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding," Mom said quickly. Trevor shrugged. "They're overreacting. We can fix it." "Fix it? Do you have any idea what you've done?" I couldn't contain my anger anymore. "We're looking at a minimum of $300,000 in materials alone, plus labor, plus penalties for the delays. And that's if they don't sue us for breach of contract." "You're being dramatic," Trevor scoffed. "This is business. Sometimes you have to cut corners to maximize profit." Cut corners. This isn't about saving on office supplies. This is about the structural integrity of a building that hundreds of people will occupy. One failure, one collapse, and people could die. Trevor Dad finally found his voice. "Is it really that serious?" "Wyatt," I slammed the project file and inspection report on the table. "See for yourself." As Dad read through the documents, the color drained from his face. For the first time, he couldn't dismiss or minimize the situation. There's more. I continued, pushing another folder toward him. I had our accountant prepare this financial projection based on our current trajectory. Even if we somehow save the Riverside contract, we're looking at insolvency within 8 months, unless drastic changes are made. The room fell silent as Dad flipped through the financial reports. Trevor fidgeted uncomfortably while Mom looked between her husband and younger son with growing concern. "This can't be right," Dad muttered, but I could see he knew it was. "It's all there in black and white," I said. "Unnecessary expenses, mismanaged projects, clients refusing to pay for substandard work, valuable employees quitting. It all adds up." Trevor suddenly stood up. "And this is a hit job. Wyatt's just jealous because Dad chose me instead of him. He's been undermining me from day one, probably sabotaging projects to make me look bad." That accusation was the final straw. Years of suppressed frustration exploded out of me. "Sabotaging? I've been working 14-hour days cleaning up your messes. I've been covering for you with clients, fixing your mistakes, trying desperately to save this company while you're out golfing and drinking with your friends. You haven't earned a single dollar you've been paid since you started here." "Boys, please." Mom intervened. "Wyatt, you need to calm down and be more understanding. Trevor is still learning." "Learning? It's been 6 months. How many more months can this company survive his learning curve? Grandpa built this business over decades, and Trevor's destroying it in less than a year." Dad put his head in his hands. "Enough. We need solutions, not accusations." "I have a solution," I said, my voice suddenly calm as I made the decision I'd been avoiding for weeks. I quit. The silence that followed was deafening. "You can't be serious," Dad finally said. "I've never been more serious in my life. I won't stand by and watch everything Grandpa built get run into the ground. I won't keep covering for Trevor's incompetence. I'm done." "You're just going to abandon the family business?" Mom asked incredulously. "This stopped being about family the moment Dad chose nepotism over merit," I replied. "I've given everything to this company, and it's gotten me nothing but disrespect and heartache in return." I stood up and headed for the door, pausing for one last look at my family. Dad looked shell-shocked. Mom was on the verge of tears, and Trevor just glared at me with a mixture of anger and surprisingly fear. "Good luck," I said. "You're going to need it." The next morning, I cleaned out my office while most of the staff was at a job site. I couldn't bear long goodbyes or having to explain my decision repeatedly. As I was packing the last box, Lisa, our receptionist, who'd been with the company since my grandfather's days, appeared in my doorway. "So it's true," she said softly. "You're really leaving." I nodded, unable to trust my voice. "What will you do now?" she asked. It was a question I'd been asking myself all night. Construction was in my blood, the only career I'd ever wanted. Starting over at 31 wasn't part of my life plan. "I'm going to build something new." I told her the idea, solidifying as I spoke. "A company that values quality, integrity, and its people." Within 2 weeks, I had rented a small office space and filed paperwork to establish Wyatt Johnson Construction. I invested my life savings and took out a loan, determined to build something that would make my grandfather proud, even if it wasn't under the Johnson Construction name. Word travels fast in the construction industry. Within days of opening, I received a call from Harold, the project manager Trevor had fired. "I heard you're starting your own outfit," he said. Need an experienced project manager. Harold wasn't the only one. Over the next month, many of our former employees reached out, eager to work for a company led by someone they trusted. Their loyalty was humbling and gave me the confidence to move forward despite the enormous risk I was taking. The real turning point came when Sophia from the Riverside development contacted me. "Wyatt, I'll be blunt. Things have gone from bad to worse with Johnson Construction. We're terminating their contract and looking for someone to take over the project. Would your new company be interested?" It was an incredible opportunity, but also a massive undertaking for a fledgling company. The risk was enormous, but so was the potential reward. "We're small, but we're experienced," I told her honestly. "Everyone on my team has worked on the Riverside project already and knows exactly what needs to be done." "That's precisely why we're approaching you," she replied. "We trust you, Wyatt. You've always been straight with us." With the Riverside contract, Wyatt Johnson Construction went from startup to serious contender overnight. We had to scramble to scale up, but with Harold's management expertise and the skilled team we'd assembled, we met every deadline and quality standard. 6 months after walking out of my family's business, my new company was thriving. We'd developed a reputation for reliability and excellence that was bringing in new clients weekly. I was working harder than ever, but for the first time in years, I felt fulfilled and validated. I had little contact with my family during this time. Mom called occasionally, but our conversations were strained. I heard through industry contacts that Johnson Construction was struggling severely. They'd lost several major clients and had to downsize dramatically. The company that had been a cornerstone of the community for 3 generations was now fighting for survival. Then came the call I never expected. My father asked to meet for lunch at a neutral location, not his office, not mine, but a restaurant halfway between. He looked older when I saw him, the stress of the past months etched deeply into his face. We exchanged awkward greetings before settling into a booth. Johnson Construction is on the brink of bankruptcy, he said, without preamble, his voice heavy with defeat. We've lost too many clients, too many good people. The bank is threatening to call in our loans. I nodded, unsurprised, but still saddened. And Trevor Dad sighed deeply. He left. Said the company was a lost cause, and he needed to pursue other opportunities. Last I heard, he was trying to get into real estate sales in Florida. The admission clearly cost him a great deal of pride. For a moment, I felt a vindictive satisfaction, but it quickly faded. This wasn't just about being right. This was my family's legacy crumbling. I made a terrible mistake. Wyatt, Dad continued, his voice breaking slightly. I chose wrong. I put my misguided desire to help Trevor above what was best for the company, for our employees, for our family legacy. And now I've lost both the company and both my sons. It was the apology I'd been waiting for, but it brought me no joy. What are you going to do? I asked. That depends on you, he replied, looking me directly in the eyes for the first time. I'm here to ask if you'd consider saving Johnson Construction. The request stunned me. After everything that had happened, he was asking me to rescue the very company that had pushed me aside. You want me to give up my new company to come back? I asked incredulously. No, Dad shook his head. I'm asking if you'd consider a merger. Johnson Construction would become part of Wyatt Johnson Construction. I'd step back to an advisory role. You'd be in complete control. I sat back, processing the proposal. It would be a complex undertaking, merging the struggling family business with my thriving new company. There would be financial risks, logistical challenges, emotional complications, but there would also be the chance to preserve my grandfather's legacy, to bring the Johnson name back to its former reputation for excellence, to heal the family rift that had been tearing at me despite my outward success. I'll need to see all the financials, I said finally, and I'd need complete autonomy over decisions going forward. No family votes, no overriding my judgment because of sentimentality. Business decisions have to be business decisions. Dad nodded quickly. Anything you need. I just don't want to be the one who let your grandfather's company die. The merger wasn't easy. Johnson Construction's finances were even worse than I'd feared, and integrating the remaining staff into my company's culture took time and patience. There were difficult conversations, tough decisions about which projects to save and which to let go, and many long nights working through the logistics. Dad kept his word about stepping back, offering advice when asked, but never interfering with my decisions. Watching him defer to my judgment was strange at first, but gradually a new type of relationship began to form between us, one based on mutual respect rather than obligation. To everyone's surprise, Trevor returned 6 months after the merger. His real estate venture had failed quickly, and he found himself without prospects once again. He asked for a job, any job, at the newly formed company. It would have been easy to turn him away to savor the reversal of our positions, but that would have perpetuated the cycle of resentment that had nearly destroyed our family. You can start in estimating, I told him. Entry level, same as anyone else with no proven skills. If you want to advance, you'll have to earn it. For the first time in our adult lives, Trevor looked at me with something resembling respect. That's fair, he said. The company that emerged from the merger was stronger than either of its predecessors. We combined the innovative approaches I'd implemented with the long-standing relationships and reputation of the original Johnson Construction. Within a year, we had not only stabilized, but were growing steadily, hiring new staff and expanding our project portfolio. More importantly, the experience changed all of us. Dad learned the hard way that effective leadership means making decisions based on merit, not emotion. Trevor discovered that genuine accomplishment feels better than handouts. And I learned that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even walk away from what you love in order to find a better path forward. Today, our company stands as one of the most respected construction firms in the region. We've expanded beyond our original scope, taking on larger and more complex projects. The name Johnson remains synonymous with quality and integrity, just as my grandfather intended. As for our family, we're still healing, still learning how to relate to each other as adults and business partners rather than just father and sons. It's not perfect, but it's authentic in a way our relationships never were before. Looking back, I realized that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to something better. Had I received that promotion instead of Trevor, I might have spent my entire career working in my father's shadow, never knowing what I was truly capable of building on my own. I wonder if any of you have experienced something similar in your family or work life, a disappointment that ultimately led to something better. I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. And if you know someone dealing with family business complications, share this video with them. Sometimes it helps to know you are not alone in these struggles. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes the detours in our plans lead us to exactly where we need to be.